Good evening, brethren. My name is Tim Bakke. I am a 32nd degree Knight Commander of the Court of Honor, and tonight I am with the illustrious Medford Kelly, 33rd degree Inspector General Honorary. This is a part of the continuing series where we are interviewing different illustrious members of our Minneapolis Valley that we call 5 Questions with a White Hat. Good evening, Med.
Good evening.
How are you doing this evening?
I am just fine.
So, well, thank you so much for your participation in this, and we hope that this is a means for everybody that obviously probably hasn't had a chance to know you yet, which I can't imagine there are many, might have a chance to hear a little bit more about you. So,
Okay.
to just kick it off, I think we know what we're talking about tonight, so why don't I sit there and start off with the first question, which is, give me a background of the man that I call behind the voice, knowing that you are a person that has done so many parts, filled in so many different areas. I think a lot of us hear your voice probably as much as we see the man sometimes. So I'd like to know a little about you.
I think you're right, but I spent about 30 years in retail store management, and also was a store manager for Walmart. Was on Target's regional staff and was outplaced back about 25 years ago. Since then, I've also done. I went after Target outplaced me. I went back to school, became a real estate appraiser, and have been doing that for about 25 years. So I've been around a while. I joined the right back in 1982.
1982.
Almost 40 years ago.
We're coming up on some pretty illustrious days ahead for you yet.
Yes.
So that is a great thing. My next question actually kind of was led in right from that. What made you knock at the door of masonry?
Well, back in the 50s, my father, we lived in North Augusta, South Carolina. He joined masonry. And I watched them tear down the old lodge and build a new lodge, and it just piqued my interest. My dad was real closed mouth, he was the old school, and he didn't say much about masonry. When I was 21, he handed me a petition and said, "Son, if you ever need this, bring it back to me." And I never settled in one town long enough, because in retail I moved 30 different times. So that's when I finally, I had a jewelry manager in the store whose husband was a Shriner, and he was really pushing me to get into the shrine. That's how I got into masonry. I decided to go ahead and go for it. Back in those days, you had to be part of the Scottish Rite too to go on it and become a Shriner. So that's how I went through the Rite. I went through a one-day class, only had 200 members back at that time in my class. It's not like the half a dozen or so or dozen class sizes we have now, but it was a fun time, and I really enjoyed the degree work. And I've been coming back ever since for almost 40 years, and I probably haven't missed a half a dozen times.
Was that done locally here in the Minneapolis area, or was that somewhere else while you were still traveling about in different sections of the country?
No, it was done locally.
That's wonderful. And actually, you kind of led right into my next question, because I think anybody that's been around the Scottish Rite long enough oftentimes sees you, usually with a group of other gentlemen around, oftentimes sitting in a lounge or sitting down at dinner, and there's always seems to be conversation going on. So what is it that continues to draw you down to the Minneapolis Valley of the Scottish Rite every Thursday?
Well, it is the degrees. They've always fascinated me, and I probably learn something every time I see the degree again. There'll be something I missed. Don't ask me how after that many years, but that's just the way it is. And I like the companionship. The fellows that I've met over the years, we meet every week and enjoy each other's company, and that's why I come all the time.
My next question I actually titled Skeletons in the Closet. Now, granted, there's probably some members that won't know what this means, but there are also others that probably know exactly where I came from this. But it gets down to my question from you. I mean, obviously, you've been involved with a lot of degree work down here at the Minneapolis Valley. Do you have a specific degree that's probably one of your favorite?
Well, it's funny that you use the word skeleton, because I play a skeleton in the 30th degree, and I've done it for many years now, and I really enjoy that. And I do a lot of voice work up in the balcony, for different degrees, and I enjoy every bit that I do.
So anything about any of those additional parts that you really find that draw you to them? I can say personally, I thank you greatly for the fact that you've You've helped us out on the 13th degree a lot in the transition years we've had lately, because your oration abilities are quite good, and we always enjoy the fact that I can impose upon you for such.
Well, you know I don't mind.
So that's the best part about it. Thank you very much for doing so.
You're welcome.
Now, another part is, like, again, it kind of goes off of the fact that oftentimes you are amongst other brethren. You sit there and kind of sit down in the lounge and there's always conversation going on. Now, that's while you're here in the building, while we're sitting there kind of going about the weekly progress of our degree work for everybody. And so I think you've probably gotten to know quite a few people in doing so. What do you find rewarding about that time?
Well, that's part of the reason I come every week, to visit with guys that I've learned to know well, that I would have never have met had it not been for the right. And after the degrees are over, a lot of us, up to about 20 of us, off and on, go out to a bar and have a few drinks, a few beers, and continue our conversation. We have a good time.
Which is, I think, one of the great things that many people that have been around the right for any period of time have realized, that the fellowship doesn't necessarily end at the Scottish Rite for the evening.
No, it doesn't.
We'll continue to go on and solve the world's problems out in a much more casual company.
Right.
But also, I think at the same time, you'll find that it's probably just equally as fun. So, what about that is something that made you think about that? Because quite truly, from my perspective, you're one of the center cornerstone people that have been kind of there for the outer lodge relationships.
Well, you meet these guys, and somebody at one time said, well, why don't we go get a drink? That's how that started. It's just that simple. And we've been doing it for many, many years in different places, because we'll have a place we go for a while, it closes down or changes. And now we're currently going over to the Moose Lodge, over just off Central Avenue Northeast. And it's owned by a brother.
So some traditions are hard to change. We just find it maybe might evolve over time, but they're always going to be there.
We won't break up our outer lodge.
So with really anything else in general that you sit there and what comes to your Scottish Rite experience, and the fact that you've been around here and seen so much, you've got to know so many over your years. What would you sit there, and as you sit there and see the incoming candidates going through their degree process at this time, what would you sit there and pass on to them from somebody that's obviously got some wisdom in the matter?
Well, I'm a little bit of an extrovert, as you know, so I like to meet all the new people that I can, that seem like they want to talk. And when I talk to them, I cover different things like outer lodge that we go to and that we have, invite them out, those kinds of things. And I just enjoy doing that.
And you know, Matt, I think probably from the perspective of many of the brethren in the Minneapolis Valley, that's exactly why we know you so well. Because
thank you.
You are that kind of person. It kind of is a person that makes us just happy to be around the other brethren as well. And the fact that we always know that there's a good time for some fraternity and fellowship. I don't have any other questions unless you have anything else you'd like to sit there and mention to me tonight and illuminate me.
No, I don't. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me.
Matt, I can say thank you too. And for the brethren of the Scottish Rite, thank you so much for listening in on this session of 5 Questions with a White Hat.